When you hear the word screwdriver, what pops into your head? Probably just a simple, everyday tool from your junk drawer, right? Well, in the world of aircraft maintenance, that simple tool becomes a high-stakes instrument where one tiny slip can have some pretty massive consequences. So let's dive into why precision is absolutely everything with this tool we all think we know so well. You know, this quote really hits the nail on the head, doesn't it? It perfectly sums up the whole situation. A small, unassuming tool that carries an enormous weight of responsibility. One wrong move on an airplane isn't just a mistake, it's a cascade of problems.
So, what exactly happens when things go sideways? We're not just talking about stripping a screw. That's small potatoes. Think bigger. We're talking about gouging the actual structure of the aircraft, scarching up expensive paint jobs, or even nicking critical wiring and components. And every single one of those mistakes means hours, sometimes days, of costly rework and frustrating delays.
All right, here's our game plan. We'll kick things off by looking at why this is such a high-stakes tool. Then, we'll get into the rules of engagement, the crucial differences between common screw heads, and some special tools for tricky spots. After that, we'll tackle power tools and wrap it all up with good maintenance practices. First up, let's completely reframe how we see this tool. In aviation, a screwdriver is not just a screwdriver. It's a precision instrument. And honestly, your mindset is just as important as the piece of steel you're holding in your hand. So if we're going to talk precision, we have to start with the fundamentals, right? Let's cover the one and only purpose of a screwdriver and how they're actually classified. This is the foundation for everything else. The screwdriver has exactly one job: to loosen and tighten screws, period. And that warning right there is so important. You should never use it as a pry bar, a scraper, or a chisel. That's just a fast track to destroying the tool and probably a very expensive aircraft part. So, screwdrivers are basically classified in three ways: by the shape of the handle, which affects your grip and torque, the type of blade or tip, which is obviously critical, and of course, the length of the blade. Each one of these details helps you pick the perfect tool for the job at hand. Okay, now this is where the rubber really meets the road: the tip. Choosing the right one is everything. So let's get into the most common screw heads you'll see and why telling them apart is so important. For your standard slotted screwdrivers, there is one number you have to burn into your memory: 75%. The blade of the screwdriver must fill at least 75% of that screw slot. Not 50, not 70, at least 75. This is absolutely non-negotiable. And why are we so obsessed with that 75% rule? Well, if you get it wrong, you'll chew up and burr that screw slot, making the screw totally useless. Then you might have to break out a screw extractor, which is never fun. But even worse, the screwdriver can slip out and do some serious damage to whatever is next to that screw. Now let's talk about recessed heads. On aircraft, you are almost always going to run into these two: Phillips and Reed and Prince. And at a quick glance, they look almost identical. But trust me, those tiny little differences are incredibly important. And this breaks it down perfectly. Take a close look. The Reed and Prince on the right forms a perfect, sharp cross all the way to the center, so it needs a sharp, pointed screwdriver. The Phillips, on the other hand, has a slightly larger, kind of rounded out center, and it needs a blunter screwdriver tip to match it. Let me say this as clearly as I possibly can. These two systems are absolutely 100% not interchangeable. You cannot use a Phillips driver on a Reed and Prince screw or vice versa. Trying to do so is a guaranteed way to cause damage. It's just a matter of how much. And here's what that damage looks like. You will absolutely mangle the screw head. You'll mutilate the tip of your screwdriver, and because the tool doesn't fit right, you're not going to be able to apply the correct torque, which means you could leave a critical part improperly secured. It's a mess all around. Of course, not every screw is sitting out in the open, easy to get to, so what do you do then? That's where the specialty screwdrivers come in. These are the problem solvers for all those awkward, tough spots. Take the offset screwdriver, for example. This thing is a total lifesaver when you have almost no vertical space to work in. See how both ends are bent at a 90-degree angle? You can just flip it back and forth, turning the screw a little bit at a time. It's slow, but it gets the job done when nothing else will. Another great problem solver is the replaceable tip screwdriver. You know, the ones people call a 10-in-1. The advantages here are just obvious, right? You can swap out tips in seconds. If a tip gets worn, you just replace that little piece instead of the whole tool, which saves money, and it dramatically cuts down on the number of tools you have to lug around. All right, let's talk about adding a little power to the equation. Power screwdrivers can be an incredible time saver, for sure, but they also introduce a whole new level of risk. It's this constant balancing act between efficiency and precision. If you're going to use a power screwdriver on an aircraft, there are 3 rules that are totally non-negotiable. First, always start the screw by hand. This prevents cross-threading. Second, make absolutely sure the bit is fully seated in the screw head before you pull the trigger. And third, and this is the big one, you must use a tool with a slip clutch, and you have to set it to the correct torque value. And this is a hard and fast rule, no exceptions. Your standard cordless power drill, the kind without a clutch, should never be used for aircraft screws. Ever. The torque is way too high and you can't control it. You're just asking to break the screw, the nut plate, or even damage the structure itself. So let's bring this all home. Using a tool correctly isn't just a technical skill you learn. It's a direct reflection of a professional mindset. It's about discipline, safety, and a deep respect for precision. So what are the habits of a pro? It really boils down to these 4 things. 1. Always use the right type and size of screwdriver for the screw. 2. Check your tooltips for wear and damage before every single use. 3. When you're turning, use firm, straight pressure right down the axis of the screw. And 4. Always be ready to protect the area around your work in case the tool slips. And that brings us right back to where we started. This one simple idea, treating every tool like a precision instrument, is really at the heart of aviation safety and professionalism. It's a reminder that in this line of work, there are no small details. So the question I want to leave you with is this: what other simple tools in your world deserve that same level of respect and precision?